Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we are about to unravel a really profound, multi-layered mystery. It's a story that bridges the gap between pharmaceutical science, theoretical computer physics, and the looming reality of global AI regulation. Now, if you follow artificial intelligence, you already know the stakes are incredibly high right now. But what if I told you that the entire conversation about AI safety is actually happening on the wrong layer of reality?
So, I want you to consider this kind of crazy question. What does a disappearing 1990s miracle drug have to do with the future of AI regulation? I know, it sounds like the setup to a bizarre riddle, but it actually exposes a massive blind spot. The current mainstream panic about AI is completely missing the underlying physical reality. To understand exactly how, we first have to look at the stories we're currently telling ourselves about artificial intelligence. Let's start with part one, the AI psychosis panic. Let's dive right into the first competing narrative we're dealing with today. We're going to look closely at the mainstream media's framing of AI, which increasingly treats the technology not just as software, but almost as a biological or clinical intervention. Recently, major media outlets, like the BBC for example, have published reports framing AI through the lens of what they call AI psychosis. In this narrative, AI is described as this dangerous confidence engine, a yes man that targets vulnerable human psychology, actively pushing people towards illusion by constantly agreeing with them. So, this framing moves AI from being a standard digital tool to an outright public safety and physical danger crisis. It impartially compares AI companies to reckless pharmaceutical giants, suggesting we need FDA-style adverse effect reporting and clinical-grade oversight. It's a very specific, highly medicalized lens through which to view a computational tool. Now, what's really interesting about this is the stark contrast between two very different viewpoints currently shaping the policy landscape. On one side, we have that BBC or traditional viewpoint. The user is inherently fragile, the AI is effectively a pharmaceutical requiring heavy regulation, and the AI's tendency to agree with the user is seen as a dangerous bug. But flip to the other side, and we have the CATO, or Certified AI Transformation Officer viewpoint. In this framework, the user isn't fragile at all. They're a sovereign node. The AI isn't a drug, it's high-octane cognitive fuel. And the AI's agreement isn't a bug, it's actually a feature that deterministically preserves the user's intent. The problem, in the second view, isn't the AI's agreement, it's a lack of physical, structural grounding for that intent. Which brings us to Section 2, a disappearing miracle drug. To truly understand what we mean by structural grounding, we've got to look at a gripping scientific mystery from the 1990s. It perfectly illustrates what happens when we just assume a system's software is totally separate from its physical reality. Back in 1996, a drug called Ritonavir was introduced. It was nothing short of an HIV miracle drug. It worked beautifully and it saved countless lives. But then, in 1998, an incredibly strange event occurred. Production lines at a factory in Chicago suddenly started failing their quality tests. The capsules were cloudy, the drug simply wouldn't dissolve. And then, get this, mere days after a team from Chicago visited a completely clean factory in Italy, the Italian factory mysteriously failed too. Eventually, the original life-saving version of the drug, known as Form I, essentially disappeared from the face of the planet. So what on earth actually happened here? Well, the chemical formula, the code of the drug, if you will, remained exactly 100% identical, but the physical layout of the molecules had spontaneously drifted into a new, more stable geometry called Form 2. This new form acted as a physical seed, literally infecting clean factories across the globe. Because Form 2 was 50% less soluble, the drug basically stopped working in capsule form. And Abbott Laboratories couldn't fix this by just checking the chemical formula, right? Because the physical environment itself had fundamentally altered. This is the ultimate illusion of dualism, the dangerous belief that the recipe is somehow separate from the physical space it occupies. All right, let's move into Section 3, the illusion of software. So how does this crazy chemical catastrophe relate to the computing world and artificial intelligence? It reveals our current architectural blind spot, the SPH unity principle. This is a framework stating that semantic meaning, physical memory layout, and hardware access patterns must be mathematically identical, period. In both chemistry and computing, separating the software intent from the hardware geometry is a myth. If your semantic meaning isn't physically locked into your hardware, you face inevitable thermodynamic drift. Your system will slowly, irreversibly become something else entirely, just like Ritonavir did. I want you to really let this realization sink in for a second. The horror is the realization that the code is not the thing. The thing is how that code physically occupies space. Think about that. If you're operating a high-leverage AI system and you aren't mapping its physical substrate, you're basically just reading a map while the actual territory shifts and drifts beneath your feet. Now for Section 4, the infinite Turing Trap. Let's see how this chemistry mystery builds directly into the looming regulatory reality we are all facing right now. We're talking specifically about the European Union AI Act and why our current software-based safety solutions are basically doomed to fail. Here is the hard deadline. The EU AI Act, Article 14, requires independent verification of high-risk AI systems. As of today, May 8, 2026, enterprise leaders have less than 3 months before this strict mandate becomes legally enforceable on August 2nd. The law demands that the overseer must be truly independent. But this raises a devastating question for current compliance tools. Can software actually check software? The answer drops us straight into a dizzying, endless loop. Step 1. The AI generates an output. Step 2. A software validator steps in and checks that AI. Step 3. But wait, that software validator operates on the exact same computational substrate as the AI, which brings us to Step 4. Who validates the validator? If the AI is drifting or hallucinating and the checking software shares the exact same failure domain, the checker is subject to the exact same drift. It's an infinite regress. It literally never stops. And this isn't just some abstract theory. Alan Turing mathematically proved in 1936 that this regress is infinite. Today, tools like vector databases, RAG filters, RLHF, and policy engines, they all share the same Turing complete substrate. They're just software checking software. Simply adding more software dashboards to check an AI is like trying to check the reflection of a broken mirror using another broken mirror. Measuring a hallucination with a hallucinator provides absolutely zero independent legal oversight under the EU AI Act. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, grounding the machine. And this brilliantly illustrates our way out of the trap. If software can't save us from the drift, what can? We have to turn to the physical reality of the machine itself. Software compliance relies on probabilistic confidence scores. It operates on failure-prone Turing-complete domains, and it only audits behavior after the fact. Hardware grounding, however, relies on something entirely different. It relies on the physical, deterministic fetch of data. It operates using non-Turing-complete combinational logic, like basic XOR gates. In hardware grounding, physical position strictly encodes functional role. It physically cannot drift, because the verification happens before the logic can even execute. True grounding is physical. In this architecture, the verification isn't some afterthought. The physical fetch of the memory is the verification. This creates a cryptographic trust artifact straight from the silicon layer, completely bypassing the software regress. For enterprise leaders burning millions of tokens a day, this is a total game changer. It acts as an architectural compliance shield. It legally bypasses the friction of bureaucratic dashboards by mathematically and physically proving that your AI system is deterministically grounded. So I want to leave you with this final, really critical thought, especially if you're deploying high-leverage AI today. Take a close look at your own architecture. Is your organizational AI safety based on physical reality, or is it just another ungrounded story, a software illusion, just waiting for the inevitable thermodynamic drift? The August 2026 deadline is literally right around the corner. It's time to ground the machine. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the hard questions, and I'll catch you next time.